What's the most insane coincidence you've ever experienced? Story 1. It was 1994. I was young and living in Portland. Friends and I got stoned one night while listening to the radio. The announcer came on, there's a treasure hunt contest underway, and every night they give out a new clue to the location of a hidden golden certificate, redeemable for a $100,000 cash prize. That's a lot, and it's hidden somewhere in our town. We tuned in every night and got off our bumps to go search several locations, but no luck. Time passed and we lost interest. A few weeks later, a chick came to the restaurant that I work in and asked me out. I had just bought a car, an Audi 5000. We went retro that very night. Drive-in movie, double feature Maverick, followed by Jurassic Park. It started raining, so we made out for a while. It was a boring movie anyway. Then Jurassic Park started, and being a nerd at heart, I halted my passion to watch some raptors. The windows were foggy, and it was still raining. I turned the key, started the windshield wipers, and all was well. Or so I thought. As the "When Dinos Rule the World" banner falls, wipers suddenly get really slow. I tried to start the car, but the battery was dead. The show ended. It's late. I asked the dude next to me for a jump. I popped the hood, and there was no freaking battery in my new car. Damn, Audi. The dude left. Me, the girl, and the concession stand crew were all that was left, and they were closing down fast. I've got $10.25. I used the 25 cents at the payphone in front of the drive-in to call a cab. I told her to take the $10 and get home. She was a nice girl, very cool. I asked her to call my roommate first thing in the morning to come get me a jump. So there I was, spending the night in the car at the drive-in in the boondocks. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. I woke up at like 4 a.m. to a totally crazy moment. A shadowy figure was stalking around in the empty drive-in lot, and he was carrying a big freaking stick. It was pitch black except for a little street lamp at the entrance by the payphone. The dude disappeared behind the concession stand, and I bolted out of there and jumped the fence. I was at the payphone right outside the gate when I called my roommate to collect. "Dude, sorry to wake you, but you gotta come to pick me up." He was on his way. Half an hour passed, I was still standing by the payphone listening and watching for the creeper, and the sun started to come up. It turned out that the dude with the stick is a janitor picking up freaking trash with one of those freaking poker sticks. I jumped back over the fence and told him that my car wouldn't start, that my friend was coming, and that we couldn't find the battery. He said, "Howdy, huh? Did you look under the seat? That's where the battery is." Sure enough, he's right. Really, Audi? My friend came and jump-started the car. The girl called the next morning. I told her thanks and decided not to see her again. I mean, I can't top that date. Then one night, a few weeks later, I was watching the local news. A guy won the $100,000 prize by finding the radio station's hidden treasure. The picture on the TV looked strangely familiar. The winner of the $100,000 prize happened across the winning ticket by chance when he noticed a shiny golden certificate pasted on the side of the payphone at the drive-in theater. Lottery failed. It was kind of a so close yet so far prank the universe seems to enjoy pulling. I would have bawled my eyes out, but hey, at least he got a memorable date and a conversation starter out of it. Story 2. Many moons ago, I lived in La Jolla, California. There I had a girlfriend named Eve. One afternoon while her parents were at work, I stopped by with grass to have a bit of fun. We smoked and enjoyed our time, until she became paranoid that her parents would suddenly return home, catching us. Her parents would not approve of their daughter being alone with a male in the house, much less one with some grass. So, with a most pleasant buzz, I headed home, 5 or so blocks away. Upon reaching my house, since my folks weren't home, I reached into my front pocket to partake the remaining grass I had. It was not there. I scoured that pocket, but there was none. In my as yet still smoke-imbued state, it nevertheless crashed into my head that I had lost it at Eve's. Lord, if her parents found it, she would never be seen or heard from again. I called Eve and told her it was missing. In a panicked voice, she told me she would begin searching, but she also said I should retrace my steps. Maybe I dropped it on the way home. Her suggestion seemed reasonable, so I set about to retrace my steps. I was perhaps a half block from her house when I saw it. There it was, in the gutter. I gleefully picked it up and placed it securely in my pocket. Instead of walking all the way home and calling Eve, I thought, since she was half a block away, I would stop by Eve's and say hello. If her parents were there, I would find a way to let her know all was well. I knocked politely. Eve's mom answered the door. She did so with that reserved graciousness adults have for the young men who are likely getting it with their daughters. She called Eve, who approached me with a pleasant smile. Eve followed me outside and took my hand. In it, she surreptitiously deposited a J. My brain did a stuttering two-step. Luckily, I did not blurt out anything that might have incriminated us. Eve and I spoke of other things, and I departed with genuine wonder, piercing the smoke wisp still lingering in my brain. At home, I looked closely at the 2 J's. One was slightly yellowed and slightly dimpled, as though it may have been exposed to dew. It dawned on me that I had gone searching for one and had found another. It felt as though the gods had heard my pleas and answered, "You want one that badly? Have one." My sense of La Jolla shifted. It became the city paved with grass. As I toked upon my gift, it would not have been right to delay smoking it. A most profound thought hit me. I still had another J. Psst, guess what? This video is sponsored by none other than me and my awesome crew at Rufus Rugs. We're the masters of creating custom, hand-tufted rugs that truly capture who you are. Whether you're looking to turn one of our intriguing thumbnails into a rug, for purely academic reasons, of course, or you're eager to transform your room with some epic anime-inspired designs, we can get it done for you.
These are all handmade by me and the team from Canada. No dropshipping BS here. Real, handmade custom rugs by me and my friends. Click the first link in the description to learn more.
Story 3. A friend of a friend once got rid of a bunch of equipment racks. His company, Crane Eldick, formerly Eldick, needed the space, so I grabbed 3. Nobody knew where any of them were from. One of them had a marvelous set of switches and lights and a marvelous aerospace-grade wiring loom and massive multi-pin connectors. The front panel simply said, Bombay Door Test Apparatus Rockwell B1B. Eldick was, of course, an aerospace manufacturer. Seeing as I run across aerospace stuff all the time, there are no great shakes. Except my best buddy down in LA was making a space movie, and I knew the wiring harness would look great on an Ursat Soviet space station, so I shipped it to him. My buddy lived in a loft at the time. They shared the 4th floor of a building in the fashion district. Sarmak, the fine art photographer who lived next door, was hanging out and having some drinks. He turned and looked at the table where the wiring harness was sitting, and turned white as a sheet. "What's wrong?" my buddy asked. "That's the wiring harness for a Rockwell B1B ALCM deployment bay test apparatus," he said. Yeah, I think it is. It was assembled for Eldick Corporation in 1981 in Mukilteo, Washington. Wow, did you, photograph them or something? No. Before I decided to be a photographer, I was an aerospace engineer at Eldick in Mukilteo, Washington. What? It was the last project I worked on, actually. It's one of the things that made me go back to school. So, did you, build a lot of those? No. We only needed one. That one. Story 4. I am the only child of a single parent. People ask me, aren't you lonely? I grew up this way, so I don't notice it. But when I see brothers and sisters, I feel a little bit envious because I have no idea how it feels. Anyway, when I was young, I was all into Fight Club, the generation of men raised by women, etc. Although I had always accepted my fatherless existence, I never questioned it until I was in my late teens. It was around this time of my life that my mother happened to be in the city, having dinner with friends, a rare occurrence as she's a homebody. She happened to check one of those free real estate magazines where there happened to be a real estate agent who was the top seller for that month, and just so happened to be my father. She brought it home, explained the whole story to me in great detail about how he got up and left, and we arranged a meeting. That's it as far as the coincidence part of the story goes, but as it would turn out, he was a prolific abandoner, as he had 2 other children with 2 other women. That makes him my half-sister and half-brother, and the half-brother had died 6 months before we found my father, and the case was on America's Most Wanted list and remains unsolved to this day. I inherited my brother's car, which I would find out through watching America's Most Wanted was actually where the crime took place. If anyone's wondering, no father-son relationship was rekindled. We met twice, ate food together, and then went our separate ways. He still sends Christmas cards addressed to my mother, ignoring me and including his business cards and company calendar magnets. Story 5. I had a very close friend in elementary or intermediate school named Evan. We hung out a lot, made a lot of jokes, teased girls, and played video games, but our favorite activity was watching episodes of The Simpsons while Evan's mom made us some seriously awesome snacks. One day in winter, near the beginning of the winter or spring semester, his parents decided that they were going to upend their roots and leave to care for their ailing grandparents, who were still in Venezuela. We didn't have much time to hang out, but one of the last things we did together was watch The Simpsons episode where Bart is accused of fraud in Australia. We laughed and had a good time. Chazwazzers, a fake Aussie neologism that gets coined in the episode, became a favorite pseudo-swear word of ours. We said it incessantly for the last few days and it got imprinted on me enough that it became a permanent part of my vocabulary. Evan and I wrote to each other occasionally after that, but eventually we grew apart. About 2 years after he moved, we stopped writing to each other. We both discovered that girls were actually pretty awesome and started dating them. Keeping in touch fell by the wayside. 10 years later, I had graduated college and was in the workforce doing some software work for a startup. I drove up with my girlfriend and 2 college buddies to meet my family in upstate New York for a much-needed summer vacation. As we were driving up I-95 along the mid-Atlantic states, I saw a car pull over to the side of the road with steam and water spraying out of the hood. Since we were having a good time, I figured it wouldn't detract much from our route if we stopped to help this guy for a second. I pull over behind the car and walk up to the driver, who's obviously exasperated and dialing a tow truck. Chazwazzers. I hear him mutter as he surveys the damage. Do you know how sometimes your brain struggles to wrap its head around an observation to make sense of what it's seeing? At that moment, it was like a gigantic crowbar had been jammed in the works of my mind. For a full 3 seconds, I lost all the capability of conscious thought. What came out of my mouth was, "No freaking way." I hesitated for a second before adding, "Evan?" It was him. We spent hours at the nearest rest stop exchanging stories and we never made it up to New York that day. My friends weren't very thrilled about missing a day of great weather for some random dude they didn't know, but I didn't care. For a brief few hours, it was like we were kids again, making pillow forts or arguing about which Mortal Kombat character was the best. It was easily the greatest afternoon of my life. Next summer, I'll be the best man at Evan's wedding. I miss you, buddy. Story 6. I lived in a sorority house in college where it was an ongoing joke throughout the sorority over many years that the house had a ghost friend. One of our sisters, appropriately nicknamed Crazy, would wake up in the mornings after drinking and tell us stories about how the ghost visited her in the night. She asked the ghost her name, she says, and she responded with what sounded like either Helen or Ellen. We would come home and find Crazy wasted in the kitchen with her arm around the air talking to Helen Ellen some nights. Every odd thing that happened around the house was attributed to Helen Ellen. She was a common topic around the house. One day, a curious member of the sorority decided to go to the city's historical museum and find out what she could about her house. She came home with a package full of papers, pictures, and information about every previous resident of the house. Lo and behold, we found out that the very first residents of the house, who built this most expensive house at the time in the city themselves, were named something or another and Ellen. Pictures were shown of where the two were married, under an archway in their extended living room. What was now my bedroom? Oh, how nice, right? The rest of the story was that Ellen had gone crazy somehow and was very sick. She died in the stairs of the house. This information included pictures of the funeral. Her casket sat in the exact spot where they were married. The exact spot where I slept each night. Story 7. A long time ago when mobile phones were not that common, this is important for the story, I was meeting up with an online friend for the first time to have a coffee. We were walking around looking for a coffee place when we heard sirens close by, followed by police cars and ambulances, and simultaneously said, "I've never seen a dead person." We laughed and kept on walking, not really thinking about the comment. Just as we were crossing the street, we both looked ahead, and in the crowd ahead of us, there was an old woman standing perfectly still in the middle of a moving crowd. And a second after that, she fell, like a fracking tree, flat down on the street. Me and my friend instantly ran up to the woman, going, "Oh my God, she just died." And when we got there were two other women approaching, obviously concerned as well. They ask us in the surrounding crowd, the other people are just staring passively as they're walking by, slowly, if anyone has a mobile phone. No one replies, so I pick mine up and start dialing 112, the emergency number in my country, to ask for an ambulance. As I was dialing the number, I looked up, and to my surprise, I saw the crowd parting in front of me. A guy on a bike comes in full speed through the people, yells, "Let me through. I'm trained for diabetic emergencies. This woman needs my help." Makes a freaking slide brake, dismounts his bike, and starts checking the woman for life signs. Puts her in the sideway position, confirms if I've called the ambulance, and then takes off on his bike, saying, "Stay with her until the ambulance arrives." Like it was just another minute of his normal life. A few minutes later, the woman gained consciousness and we tried to have a conversation with her. She does not speak. She just makes gestures and silent mouth movements. At this point, I started worrying that she might be seriously injured. Not a second after that thought ran through my mind, one of the two women that had stopped to help started gesturing to the woman and saying, "She's deaf. I know sign language." I am dumbfounded but relieved, and after a few minutes it was clear that the old woman was shaken. But okay, she just wanted to go home. I called off the ambulance, we shook her hand, said goodbye to the two women and started walking towards a coffee shop. Needless to say, I have never experienced a string of coincidences like that before. I still think I was set up for a candid camera moment. These things just don't happen. Story 8. I moved to India when I was 10 years old with my family. When we moved into our apartment in Mumbai, my parents told me that my room used to belong to a girl my age named Sarah. Fast forward 1 year, I went to Bangkok for a swim meet and met a girl named Sarah who used to live in Mumbai. Details were exchanged, and it turns out it was Sarah who used to have the bedroom that I was still occupying in Mumbai. Fast forward 6 years, my parents are currently living in Turkey and I began college at a small school in Illinois, like 1,000 students. Everyone keeps telling me about this other girl who grew up abroad that I should meet. We eventually met at a party. It is the same Sarah. Apparently I follow her around the world. Story 9. Right after freshman year, I joined a research lab for the summer, as did this other guy who also finished his first year in biology. Sometime later, my dad told me that some woman he works with has a son, also in the same research institution as I am. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, okay, my university has 60,000+ people. What are the chances? I asked, "What lab?" It turned out the son is the guy I met in the lab. The place they work has nothing to do with our fields. Fast forward 3 years and the guy and I were dating. We decided to go to a country where my relatives live and have lived for a long time to stay there for a bit. His family also has relatives in that city. It is on another continent, and they wanted to find out how far away my relatives are from theirs, location-wise. It turns out that my and my boyfriend's uncles live on the same street, in the same building, one above the other, in identical apartments. Basically, they have known each other for like 15 years and are family friends. The red string theory is strong with these people. I mean, even their families and relatives are tied. Do you believe in destiny? Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and maybe you'll get lucky reading more mind-blowing stories like these. Story 10. I went into Home Depot to buy light switches. An employee asked if I needed any help while I was staring at a bunch of dimmers. After he helped me, this conversation developed. He had a thick Italian accent and both my parents are Italian. Me. So, how long have you been in Canada? Him. 6 years. Are you Italian as well? Me. My parents are both Italian. Him. What part of Italy are they from? Me. Molise. Him. Me too. What city? Me. Isernia. Him. Wow, that's where I'm from as well. What's your father's name? Me. My last name. Him. Albino. My father's name. It turns out that his father grew up with my father. Every time he spoke to his dad since arriving in Canada, his father asked him if he had found albino yet. He kept trying to explain to his dad that Canada was huge. They didn't know what part of Canada my dad moved to 45 years ago. I called my dad and let him talk to his long-lost friend's son. He was not disappointed. Let's take a moment to appreciate how heartwarming the narrative is. It may take a while, but what's meant for you will always find its way to you, despite the distance. Story 11. I was at a party once and buzzed. There was some guy trying to impress women with some magic tricks. They were actually pretty good, but I was tipsy, jealous, wanting some of the female attention. I told him I have a trick that's pretty great and everyone gathered around. Oh, by the way, I don't actually have a trick. I'm just wasted at this point. I did a pick a card, any card trick. He showed it to me, 6 of hearts, and then we put it back in the deck. I made a million moves, cutting the deck, handing it to someone else, etc. It was getting insane. I was just going to waste time, but I had a crowd at this point. So, darn it, I'm just going to draw the top card after all this crap. Boom, 6 of fracking hearts. The guy stood there looking dumbfounded at me. He couldn't figure it out. He was sure that I had a trick for it. It was everything I could do to contain myself. The crowd was amazed, and so was I. The guy started questioning me. He wanted to know my secret. I told him, a good magician never reveals his secrets, but I would give him a hint. Jack of clubs, I say with confidence as I flip over another card, and there it was. Jack of fracking clubs. 1 to 52 multiplied by 1 to 52 equals 1 to 2,652, right? Sure, those aren't the worst odds ever, but at that moment, it was unadulterated magic. I don't even know how to explain how amazing it was. I wish I could let that guy know I was just playing with him, but then again, I also hope I set the magic bar so high that he's a great magician today because of my ruse. I won't even touch the math of all that, but it really was jaw-dropping. Once-in-a-lifetime luck. I guess the state of intoxication helps. He should have played till his luck ran out. Story 12. In 2002, I was backpacking through Europe. I'm from the US with a friend of mine. We were on a train platform in Germany waiting for a sleeper train to Prague. Behind us, about 30 feet away, I heard my name called. Turned around and saw 2 high school classmates of mine I had not seen in about 5 years. We talked until the train pulled up and decided to meet up at our destination. We walked in opposite directions, getting on different ends of the same car. As we looked for our room, pre-booked, we saw them coming towards us. It turned out that they had been booked in the same cabin, 6 bunks in each cabin, and were in the bunks next to us. We ended up having a really great time in Prague, sharing a hostel room. Story 13. When I was 9, I was watching a Disney Channel movie about kids exploring a spooky museum at night to catch mummies or something. The tension in one of the scenes started building, and the big scare finally came when one of the kids' watch alarms unexpectedly went off at 10 p.m., movie time. It just so happened that I had set my own watch alarm that morning for 10 p.m., and apparently the time of night in the scene coincided perfectly with real life so that both watches went off at the same time. I did the 9-year-old equivalent of pooping my pants, which was pooping my pants. Hilariously written. I laughed my off. No pun intended. Of course, kids that age can be pretty gullible, but even as an adult, I would have been scared too. Story 14. Freshman year, one of my friends threw a tiny gum wrapper foil airplane during lunch and it got stuck in the ceiling. 3 years later, as a senior, I was sitting at the same table with the same kid that threw it, and the principal came over and was yelling at us to keep it down when, out of nowhere, the plane came down and landed in her hair. This enraged her, and she wasn't going to let anyone leave until she found out who did it. We told her what happened and she gave us all detention for lying to her. I wasn't even mad I got detention. It was too funny. Did you have fun with these wild, mind-boggling stories no one can seem to explain? Then head over to What is the most unexplainable thing you've ever witnessed for more. Story 2 will have you speechless. See you there.